At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh.
Before we get to today's show, I just want to talk about Stamps.com. Getting your mailing and your shipping done can seem like a no-win situation. Going to the post office takes a valuable time. Leasing a postage meter, that's expensive. Well, luckily I know a better way, Stamps.com. You can buy and print your own official U.S. postage for any letter or any package. It's more powerful than a postage meter. You can avoid those time-consuming trips to the post office. And I personally use Stamps.com. And actually, you could too if you listen to the BS report, which you obviously do because you're listening to this. If you use the promo code BS for this special no-risk trial, it is a $110 bonus offer. It includes a digital scale, up to $55 of free postage. All you have to do is go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in BS. Stamps.com. Check it out.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, taping this on a sunny Monday here in Southern California. We have JackO coming up a little bit later to talk about A-Rod and the Super Bowl. That's going to be around the 50-minute mark. But first we have a Grantland connoisseur / critic of television, Andy Greenwald, is going to come on. And we're going to try to have a spoiler-free TV discussion, and I think we're going to succeed. So let's bring him on. Andy, how are you?
I'm great. I wish it was sunny here in New York.
What is the weather like in New York?
Freezing rain, general depression.
Yeah, see, that's why I live on the West Coast.
Yeah, there's something to that.
Yeah. Lots of TV going on. We premiered the Grantland Basketball Hour last night and had the misfortune of going against about 40 different TV shows. It's re-airs on Saturday on ABC, by the way, including The Walking Dead that came back that you did not see.
I didn't see it. I know. I'm slipping. There's so, like you said, there's so much TV, including obviously the Grantland Basketball Hour, which is the top of my list. But yeah, I mean, last night we had all the HBO comedies were on. We had the Jinx. We had the premiere of Better Call Saul. The Grammys were on.
Yeah.
We're hitting into this crazy time. I mean, it used to be that the fall was the time when there was so much to watch, but I really think that January, February is now the real crunch time.
Let's bring in Tyrese from The Walking Dead for his thoughts on last night's show.
I can't wait.
I didn't enjoy last night's show. I didn't like it at all. You'll know why when you see it.
Yeah, I'm the one.
I did not like last night's show.
I'm the one who doesn't want spoilers here because I couldn't even watch it.
Yeah.
Do you have premiere fatigue with Walking Dead? Someone tweeted this the other day. I wish I could give them credit, but doesn't it feel like it's always a season finale or a season premiere because of the way they chop it up?
Yeah. Well, they just don't want to go against football, right? Like they disappear for the football playoffs just to not go head-to-head against the football playoffs, it feels like.
It's partly that. I think it's also it allows them to feel like an event. They can always be selling it as like a big episode. But also I think it keeps them sane because they have really grueling filming schedule in Atlanta and they film 16 episodes and most cable shows do like 10 or 12. And so this way they get a little break in the middle and Norman Reedus can go lip sync in Slater Kinney videos or whatever he does in his spare time. So, but was it a good episode?
Yeah, it was. It was a typical Walking Dead episode. I'm going to say this without spoiling anything.
Okay.
At some point, there's going to be some real fatigue with the whole, hey, let's go to place X, and maybe that place will have something we need, and then, of course, it doesn't, and then there's zombies, and like that formula is going to get stale. I don't know what year, but it's going to get stale at some point.
Here's a question. Whenever we talk, we tend to always end up talking about better ideas for Walking Dead spinoffs and how they should all just be in Baltimore with the Wirecast. So we won't do that. But some information has come out about the actual really happening Walking Dead spinoff. And from what I've read, it suggests, now this might be a spoiler, it also might be wrong information, but it suggests that it is A, it's set in Los Angeles or in California, and B, it might actually begin right before the infection. So we might actually see some of the stuff that we didn't see in the original Walking Dead series. Where are you on both of those points?
The prequel You're saying?
Well, the prequel leading into it. So, like, you know how we basically, The Walking Dead started, like, 28 Days Later started with Rick waking up in a hospital and the world is over. And in the first season, there were a couple flashbacks to the way it used to be, and they were so clumsy, it made me very grateful that we never saw the world end.
Yeah.
And watching The Strain made me really glad that The Walking Dead didn't do it, because it proved how hard it is to do that. But, so I guess what we might see is maybe there's some talk of outbreak or sickness on the East Coast, and it's sweeping the nation, and so maybe we're going to see a little bit of it hitting these new characters.
So it'll be a prequel. Will it have a shelf life where it ends when the actual Walking Dead starts, or will it actually be a prequel that then leads into the current thing that the Walking Dead cast faced, but only it's in Los Angeles?
Unclear. I think my sense is that it's essentially going to be the same world. It's just going to be a world overrun, but we might actually see the world being overrun. So there's a chance that, like, the first episode could be someone going to a Pinkberry just normally, and or whatever it is you guys do out there, and then maybe someone snapping it on the way home. That felt like a shot
at LA people.
I'm cold.
Going to a Pinkberry or whatever you guys do out there. That's
cold.
why we
I'm
live
angry.
Here, because we can go to Pinkberry.
The reason I brought up the spin-off is because that might be a way for them to avoid falling into that same plot trap. I mean, especially if they're going to have 2 hours of zombie entertainment on at the same time for the bulk of the year.
Has a prequel ever worked? I fell asleep during Better Call Saul last night. This is quite a podcast. You missed Walking Dead, and I fell asleep during Better Call Saul. Has a prequel ever worked? I always feel like it's weird to shift the time continuum in my head. I've never totally enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, especially when, you know, in the case of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, like, we know what happened to a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And so the thought of it sort of removes some of the drama from it, you know, which is was also my problem always with Boardwalk Empire, actually. Like, the most interesting characters, it wasn't a prequel to anything except our real life, but my problem with it was always that the most interesting characters, like Lucky Luciano or I was going to say Al Pacino, Al Capone, the spoilers for them was Wikipedia. Like, we knew they weren't going to die in season 3, so it took the drama out of it. So similarly, you have Mike back to life on Better Call Saul, and we kind of know where he's headed. So that's the fear. But I was really in on the show. I was really surprised. I was very, very dubious of the whole idea, but the first 3 episodes sold me.
Really? Yeah, it seems like all the TV critics / connoisseurs really like this show.
Yeah, I think that I got a little bit lost in my own head and sort of thinking about all the things that could go wrong, like exactly like you said about a prequel could be a bad idea, or why would they want to mess up a masterpiece? Like, why go back to the scene of the crime when you got out of there? But the one thing that I forgot was that Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, who co-created the show, like, they're just really good at making TV. And it kind of doesn't matter what Vince Gilligan is doing, because his writing is so good and the plotting is so crisp, and it gets you right back in the gut the way Breaking Bad did really quickly, especially tonight's episode. There's a second episode tonight, Monday. So
why was this the move for Vince Gilligan?
I'm glad you asked that. So I've been thinking about this. Here's my thought, because when I wrote my piece, I was thinking about it. Like, all the guys, and they kind of are all guys who have their shows on what we've basically made like a Rushmore of great TV dramas the last few years. So like your David Chases and your David Simons, they would never go back. You know, I spoke to David Chase on my podcast. Like, he would never ever consider doing anything with The Sopranos again, and David Simon certainly wouldn't go back to Baltimore. But but also, what else have they done since? I mean, they've worked, but I feel like it can be paralyzing to come off of a masterpiece. I think that Vince Gilligan, because, you know, he worked in TV just like in the trenches. You know, he was on X-Files for a lot of years. He has a lot of things on his credits that he wouldn't exactly be bragging about. So I feel like for him, the thing was just to keep working. Just keep working, because you're never going to make something like Breaking Bad again, and the quicker you acknowledge that, the better you are in life.
It would have been interesting if he took over another show that existed and just did the Vince Gilligan treatment on it. Like, what if he had taken over The Walking Dead this season?
Oh my God, it would be so good.
It's like a no-lose for him, right? He could just take some franchise that existed and elevate it to some crazy level for a year, and then go off and do something else.
It would be so funny. I mean, or what if he just took over Grey's Anatomy? Like, this is a really good idea. Yeah. One of the things that I always liked about comic books is that, like, you know, Spider-Man is published every month, but someone comes on and writes his or her, like, 12 months Spider-Man story. And then someone else comes on, and maybe that person is more violent or funnier or weirder, and then they write theirs, and it just keeps going. I mean, it would never happen, but I wish TV worked like that, where you could have people with very different sensibilities take over the franchise. Or like Law & Order. Like, NBC just announced they're going to probably bring back the original Law & Order. Why does it have to be Dick Wolf doing the same show? Why not
Is NBC finally listening? NBC's finally listening to our podcast. Does this mean the ER can come back now?
I think they're finally listening. I think it probably does.
Just bring back ER. What are you waiting for? We talk about this in the Grantland office once a month. Just bring it back. Nobody's going to be like, what are you doing, NBC? Everybody's going to be like, oh, ER's back. Is Noah Wiley still on it? That's going to be the reaction.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. The star of that show is The Hospital.
Yeah, you can't lose. What are you doing?
They're all doing it. I mean, Fox is bringing back X-Files now, probably. I mean, it's clear that they're listening to us. But it does seem like
the mistake was that the 90210 and Melrose Place bringbacks were poorly executed and poorly thought out. And
that's right.
It put a fear in people that wouldn't work. But I think it works if it's, we talked about this before, but it works when it's a hospital or it's a law firm or it's police. Those are the three things, because those can go on forever.
Those are machines. You can't bring back chemistry between actors that you had 15, 20 years ago, but you can bring back the machine that drove the show and then try again.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's no reason not to.
And as we've talked about, you can also shift locations, which is, always what they should have done with a Cheers bring back. Although I don't know if we've talked about that before too, but I don't know in this day and age and the PC society whether I feel like people would be protesting Norm. Like, why does Norm have to drink so much? And then he just goes home to his wife.
People would be concerned about his health.
Set.
I think that's legitimate. Yeah. I feel like
Cliff has a medical disorder, and they're making fun of him. And now we're going to mobilize on Twitter with a hashtag.
Carla's unhappy marriages are a sign of a troubled psyche. Like I feel like she cheers.
How do we know what's happening in Carla's marriage? We're making fun of dysfunctional marriages, and here's a hashtag.
You're from Boston. What is the there's a sad drama version of Cheers waiting to be done, isn't there? About people who just live in a bar. If there's an hour-long show, 8 episodes on AMC, I mean, that could be one of the darkest shows in TV history.
Yeah, it wouldn't be set in the part of Boston you'd think it would be set in. It would be like one of the little suburbs on the outside of Boston, like a Charlestown or Revere type thing. There was some show last night. I was watching NBC for some reason. I think it was NBC. It was some show where these two people are friends and they're having a kid, but then he falls in love.
Yep.
Have you seen this show? Have you seen this ad yet?
Well, this is for what's it called?
Buddy Up.
I thought this was the one with Alicia Cuthbert.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
And she's gay, but someone else isn't, and they're having a kid, and I haven't seen the show yet.
But then he falls in love. I mean, are we really out of ideas? We're just out? We just don't have any ideas left? That's
correct. Yeah.
We're done?
Look at what NBC's doing. They've got that. That show has already been canceled, even though it doesn't exist yet. And similarly, last week they premiered Allegiance, which is basically a worse version of The Americans, which is my favorite show on TV, but is very poorly rated. And so the idea that NBC is trying to steal an idea that isn't working all that well in terms of what matters to NBC in terms of ratings for another network is ridiculous. And it's just another one-word title. I mean, NBC in the last few years alone, Allegiance, Believe, Crisis. I mean, they just come off of the factory line, and there's nothing to it. They're like pre-canceled. And then you look at shows, I don't know if you've been watching, but, Empire on Fox is the biggest thing to happen in network TV in years.
Yeah, and what a shocker that a show geared toward a black audience that is like the most active audience on social media and is dying for more shows.
Yes.
And just in general is the most underserved population on television. What a shocker that show took off. Can't believe it.
How sad is it how ingrained that is, that it didn't occur to anyone? I mean, Joe Adalian, the guy who does all the numbers and rating stuff, it's great. He's so good at covering that side of the ball for Vulture. He was going in the numbers of Empire, and he saw that the viewership number for episode 2 among African-American households was a Super Bowl number. It was basically 75% of households were watching the show. That audience was out there.
And the audience has increased for 5 straight episodes.
Yeah, has not happened in a decade.
But what's amazing to me is Scandal took off during the 2013 season, basically the 2012-2013 season, and it was this thing. First of all, it was a phenomenon just in general for ABC, but it was also like it'd become kind of the show of the African American population. That was, I don't even know what the white equivalent would be of Scandal, but it's weird to me coming off that season that you think how network executives just try to rip off whatever trend is going on.
Yes.
You would have thought there would have been like 15 shows geared toward that audience.
No,
and now ABC was the only one to figure it out. ABC was like, let's keep giving Shonda Rhimes shows.
Yes.
Here's another one.
And why don't we make a sitcom like Blackish, which is just, A, it's a very good show. It's a good sitcom, and I really like it. But B, it's telling stories and starring people that just haven't been done a billion times. The show the NBC show you're talking about the pregnancy in the front. I mean, we've done that. We've just done that so many times. So
yeah, I've seen those young white characters.
Yes, we've seen them. We've seen them trying to make
crazy situations.
Those crazy group of white friends in the big city. I think we've seen that. It's not only it's very hard to do it again, it's just diminishing returns because it's been done. And so, or like Fresh Off the Boat, which ABC premiered this week.
I was going to bring that up. Well, yeah. Why did that take 20 years since Margaret Cho's show?
20 years. And I'm not even thinking about this in terms of like a social justice or representation issue. I'm just talking about the fact that there are limited number of stories on TV, and instead of telling the same ones, why wouldn't you rush to a place or to an audience or to creators that actually have access to different stories? Like, it just seems like a no-brainer.
Remember that show on BET a couple years ago, The Game?
Yes.
And it was happening kind of over there on television, but yet every time it was on, it owned social media for the night.
That's right.
And yet for two, and then Scandal happened, same thing. I don't get it. I don't understand what the people who make TV decisions, I don't understand what they do all day and what they look at. And also, like, TV is changing too, where maybe this is part of the problem. TV for networks is still what it is, but yet when you look at what Amazon and Hulu and Netflix are doing, all they want is a show that's loved by like 75,000 people.
It's more valuable
that's
to be
their whole
adored
strategy
by
now.
More valuable to be adored by a small group than liked by a large group.
It's really interesting
totally
to hear them talk about it, because somebody was telling me about the guy who runs Amazon and Transcendent, the Tambor show.
Transparent,
Transparent. I'm sorry. He plays a transgender character, and he was saying, like, we don't even care how many people watch it, because the people that watch it love it, and they're going to pay for Amazon Prime every month to see this show.
That's right.
So that's all we care about. So if that's 75,000 people, that's 75,000 people at $7 a month or whatever the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, that's why being a subscription model is the future, and it's the best possible scenario. You don't need to worry about, the whole population, which is impossible anyway. You just need to get people hooked. You need to get people who really love something who will pay for the next episode of it.
But how do you compete with that?
If you're a network?
If you're a network, how do you compete with that? Because you can't create shows that people are just going to universally, people are going to either not watch or totally love. So there's like this weird middle ground you have to find.
Yeah. Well, that's why you'd think
not that many.
That's why you'd think that finding underserved audiences would be the key. And again,
yes.
We're praising Amazon and Netflix, but they're not really as yet making shows that star or are created by minorities. Like they're
right.
not taking advantage of that audience. But what's really depressing is not just the headlines we see now that say diversity is the hottest trend in television, but the fact that network TV, before they thought to look to African American audiences or Asian American audiences, they went to live musicals. Like, that's their chain of priorities of what to reach.
Right.
Like, the head of NBC was like, we could make shows created by and starring black people, or we could do Peter Pan with Brian Williams' daughter. It's like, I think that's our first move. And if that doesn't work, maybe then we'll try to get diverse. It's not a very thoughtful industry. It's really strange, especially now that it's being exposed because, like you said, Netflix and Amazon are moving so fast.
The way TV networks have handled black audiences is, in my opinion, the best article that nobody's written yet about the last 40 years of television. Because I remember when I was doing the Eddie Murphy career arc, which was, I think, sometime in 2012. And, when I was growing up, there were all these shows with, like, iconic black characters and black families on TV.
Yep.
Right? Like Good Times Sanford and Son, What's Happening, Different Strokes, like just you go. White Shadow was on, like all these different shows, and then by the time Eddie Murphy,
you go into my generation too. You have Cosby Show and Family Matters. I mean, these were important shows.
Right. So there's this middle ground between those two generations, when all of a sudden Eddie Murphy's on SNL, and he's really the only super duper important black person on television, because all the other characters had just gone away and all the other shows had gone away. And then Bill Cosby brought it back. And then all of a sudden you had this second generation that kind of crested with the Fresh Prince.
Mm-hmm.
But then everything drifted to cable. And then all of a sudden it became this whole underserved, audience thing again. And you had the shows like the Damon Wayans Show and a couple other ones. But for the most part, Shonda Rhimes, she's really good. She shouldn't stand out this much.
I agree. And it's worth noting that what she is doing, I mean, she's not making shows that are just, and I don't think Empire's this way either. I really like Empire, but Shonda Rhimes isn't making shows that are specifically like niche targeted only to African American audiences. She's just making fully diverse shows, and she goes into it, casting the best actor. She doesn't really worry about that sort of thing. She's just unburdened by this sort of hand wringing or just flat out just ignoring that the executives have done. She makes it look easy.
Right. They're really good shows anyway that happen to have minority characters.
Yeah, it's not.
Hey, there's a great idea.
I know. Well, in bringing it full circle, that's the thing that I think we've both been talking about every time we bring up Walking Dead. I just think that makes the show better, having a diverse cast. It's not just for the sake of it's not a numbers game. It makes the show more interesting. It allows for different combinations and different representations on screen that we're not used to seeing.
Network TV's idea of incorporating black characters is like, hey, NCIS spinoff. We got LL Cool J. He's with Chris O'Donnell. They're gonna be buddies.
It's worse. Have you watched The Mysteries of Laura, that awful NBC show with Deborah Messing?
Of course I haven't.
Of course. Well, as you know, then the show stars Deborah Messing, and she's this heroic every mom type who's terrible at being a cop and terrible at being a mother. And her partner is an African American actor whose job is basically to be like, "Damn, you look good in that dress, girl." Like,
no.
That's his job. Like, and the actor is good. He's fine. I think his name's Laz Alonso. Like, he could be good on anything, but that is in the pilot, that's what he does.
I've only seen a couple episodes of the Viola Davis show. Yeah. But she's so good as an actress, just in general. I almost feel like she's overqualified to be in the show.
She is.
Like, she's overqualified to be on television almost, unless it was some amazing HBO show. I kind of can't believe she's on ABC. They really hit the jackpot with that one.
I know, and that's another thing. Like, the reason she's on ABC is because she was tired of playing like sad mothers and nurses or being in The Help. She's one of the best actors of her generation, absolutely, and she's recognized as such in movies like in Doubt or on the stage. Yeah. But she just doesn't have those choices both because of who she is and her age. And so all of a sudden Shonda Rhimes is like, I'm going to give you this crazy juicy part where you get to do everything. You get to be sexy and tough and sneaky, and she gets to do all the things that an actor wants to do. And ABC, it just seems so obvious again. There's so many actors like that who are underserved.
We went to see Black Cat 2 weeks ago of a few of the Grantland people, because we had the movie theater next to our office. And we actually thought there would be nobody in the theater and we could just talk the whole time, but there was like 4 other people. And Chris Ryan rides with Michael Mann just to the death.
I mean, I know it intimately.
And Sean Fennessy will just see any movie, and he just doesn't care what the movie is. He's available and ready to go. So in Black Cat, Viola Davis is in Black Cat.
She is.
Black Cat could have been a good movie if it was 25 minutes shorter, and whichever Helmsworth that was, the guy from Rush, if he hadn't decided to try to do like this weird Sly Stallone accent over just making the character Australian. You just can't get past it. He's just like, hey, yo, you're not going to talk to me like that. And it's like, what are you doing? How did nobody stop this?
I just don't believe Thor as a computer hacker. I don't buy it.
Well, if he had been an Australian computer hacker, I would have maybe, whatever. At least don't Future advice to the Hemsworths. Hemsworth?
Hemsworth
Turning
is...
to my dad. The Hemsworth is, don't do accents. Just stick to your guns.
Can I just give a quick sidebar? This is important advice for everything. Like, I don't know if you checked out this show called Fortitude that premiered the other week. It's on Pivot, a channel I didn't know that existed. It's actually really good.
I heard about this. Yeah, I heard it was good. I have no idea where that is on my cable system.
It's worth checking out. It's an Arctic murder mystery, but because it's a co-production between Pivot and like a British channel, Sky, the cast is crazy international. There's English people and Danish people and American people. And one of the stars is Stanley Tucci, American actor. And his part is a British detective. And the single smartest thing that they did was just make him American.
Yeah.
And like in episode 4, someone's like, "You're a British detective." And he says, "Yes." And they say, "But you're American." And he just says, "Yes." And then the show goes on. And it's like, thank you. You saved your show. Because hearing Stanley Tucci pretend to be English would have ruined everything. Instead, it's just a shrug and we move on. I feel like that should be what we need to do going forward. We just agree to accept it.
Think how many Kevin Costner movies we would have saved.
I
But
know.
But
Anyway,
Viola
Black
Davis is in Black Cat. And she's great. She's way overqualified to be in it. And it's your typical part that it would have been so much more interesting if she had taken a crack at the Hemsworth kid. And instead, of course, is with the generic person he's going to end up with from the beginning because it's the sister of the other hacker, and she's a good-looking Chinese lady, and you just know immediately, like, oh, gee, I wonder where this is going.
Yep.
But it would have been so much more interesting if Viola Davis had gotten involved. But no wonder she went to TV. She's got these crap parts in Black Hat.
But this is what happens to a lot of. I mean, historically, that's what happens to a lot of the best African American actors. It's like they get to be the president or the judge. Because it's like, oh, look, we're giving this actor this strong part, but it's this strong, noble part that has nothing to do other than just be present. Like Morgan Freeman as the president in all those movies, or as God in Bruce Almighty or whatever that was, Like Morgan Freeman is a crazy creative and good actor when he's on his game, but he gets paid by being just showing up. And
remember the dude on NYPD Blue who finally left? I think his name was James McDaniels. He was the sergeant.
Oh, yeah.
His entire role was just like telling Sipowicz, like, "Hey man, you got to get your act together." And after like 8 years, I think he finally left. And it's like, why would that guy leave the show? He's never gonna have a better job. And it's like he was probably going crazy that his part sucked so much, couldn't take it anymore.
It's been amazing seeing, Esa Patha Murkison, who was on Law and Order for like 35 years, as the boss, and. Good for her. I mean, actors want to work, right? And she probably has a nice home and she lives in New York. But as soon as that was done, she started taking parts on the stage in New York. And it's like, oh, wait, these people like her, like working actors are good actors. But then they just fall into these roles where it's a steady paycheck, but there's just nothing to do. They just serve a purpose.
I was in a hotel room with my daughter on Saturday night because she was in the soccer tournament. And we were watching Nonstop, which is kind of like the perfect movie for her to watch at this age. It's like the PG-13 action movie where nothing really bad's going to happen, and there's a little girl trapped on the plane. So it was, it was kind of the perfect movie to fall asleep to. And what I forgot was that Lupita Nyong'o was one of the flight attendants in Nonstop, and Julianne Moore's in it during the same year she's going to win the Oscar.
Yeah. Well, Julianne Moore's in Seventh Son also that just came out. Which is like, she's got an orbit.
All of these people, they can't find parts.
No, they can't find parts. I mean, this also goes into the other thing that worries me about. I mean, this isn't TV, this is movies. But once someone breaks out, the only thing Hollywood, and this is not just an African American thing, this is just all talented young actors. The one thing Hollywood knows what to do with them now is plug them into a superhero movie or a franchise movie. So when Lupita won the Oscar, and then one of the next things that was announced was that she was going to be in the new Star Wars movie. I mean, that's great. That movie seems to have a lot of really good actors in it that I would like to see in any kind of movie, but I kind of want to see her in another movie where she could win an Oscar, not just be in space.
Yeah, or even, why not a rom-com?
Well, that's the
next
thing.
What's wrong with that?
It's exactly right. Well, that's why it was kind of exciting. I think there was some news that she and David Oyelowo, who's in star of Selma, are making a movie together, and in which they would potentially get to play like full-blooded human beings and not just historical figures or space knights or whatever else Hollywood wants to put them in.
It makes me nervous that British people are taking over American acting.
But that's why my new accent purity law would help us, right? Because all the British people and Australian people who have taken all of our parts wouldn't be able to because they would have to only use their real accents.
I had dinner I was at a dinner last week with a bunch of people, including Sean Ryan, the guy who created the Shield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's a talented guy.
Very talented guy. Puts a lot of thought into stuff. He had a great theory. So I'm giving him 100% full credit for this theory. He was talking about, we were talking about why British people are starting to take over all of these roles and playing American people. It's really bizarre trend. Like, we have 300 million people in this country. You'd think we'd be able to find more actors. Like, why do British people keep coming in and taking these great parts? So his theory was that it's not that cool to be in theater if you're a dude.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, it's like, you're like, really? You're in theater? What are you doing? Why are you doing? I don't want to say a stigma, but it's certainly not something that existed 30 years ago as much. But now, I don't know. Maybe we're not pushing people toward acting. Maybe we should be recruiting people to find more actors or something. We're in a danger zone.
We should celebrate signing day with like young high school actors putting on the Juilliard hat.
Yeah, why not?
Or like Yale School of Drama makes a big press conference. Or like celebrity recruiters like Oscar Isaac out there for Juilliard just trying to get the next young kid. I'm into it.
Think about like the European soccer teams, right?
Right.
They have all of these programs to develop young soccer stars.
Young talent. That's right. They're in the system early.
Yeah. So they'll sign, like Real Madrid will sign some 13-year-old and they'll put him in some crazy soccer program and the goal is to develop whoever. Maybe like NBC should develop some $75 million training program for young actors that then become exclusive. Almost like when you have these, like American Idol, when they lock the singers if they make it down to contracts and they're basically like they have to turn their lives over. Well, maybe that's what one of these networks should do.
I think the biggest difference between, and this is not, I think people have always talked about the British theater tradition as like being much more educational and playing a wider variety of parts. So you have people able to do more than people here who just generally want to be movie stars. But I think there's a difference to be pointed out too between the way the TV industries work, because now it's not just the actors coming over. So many of the shows that I'm writing about for Grantland and reviewing are British shows. And one of the interesting things about watching a lot of British TV is the just total meritocracy of the cast. So actors who are the stars of shows show up in other shows just as, as small secondary characters. Like Black Mirror, which is just this incredible anthology series that everyone should check out on Netflix. One episode in the background, you're like, oh, that's the guy from Downton Abbey, and he's just playing a hospital orderly. In another episode, oh, that's Haley Atwell, who is, star of Agent Carter. And in this episode, oh, that's Donald Gleason, who's like in the new Star Wars movie. And there's this idea that you're in one thing and then you're in the next thing and you're just working, and you don't there's no like, if you were the star of this, then you can't take a step down. And part of that has to do with the fact that British shows, are much shorter. There's like, you only get signed for one season of like 6 episodes. You're not signed for 7 years. But I wish there was some of that lack of ego could be imported here, because then we would see actors moving more freely. We could see people like James McDaniel move from NYPD Blue to a supporting role in something else where he gets to do more. But instead, people are sort of locked into their fame level.
Remember that one Wire season when they basically they froze out McNulty?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was 3 or 4. It was like, yeah, McNulty, it was season 4, I think. McNulty, you're going to take a seat this season. Yeah, we know you're the star of the show. You're going to go over there.
Well, because he's English also. But The Wire also did something that I always just loved, which was, do you remember where like smaller characters would suddenly get their moment? People who'd been there the whole time, or I just remember that moment in, I guess it's the end of season 2 when we meet Bunny Colvin almost as a throwaway, and then all of a sudden in the next season you realize, oh, he's an incredibly important character and the world just got bigger. Yeah. I really have always been a fan of that idea, but it's hard to do because you can't, you can't lock someone in, because if you have them as a guest star for season 2, in between season 2 and 3, they're going to be out at pilot season trying to get bigger parts, and then maybe they're gone.
I'm glad you brought up The Wire, or one of us brought up The Wire, because I was thinking about this over Christmas break. The Wire versus Sopranos versus Breaking Bad never really has been totally answered for greatest show of all time. And everybody's got their hardcore thoughts on it. I think the one thing that's changed as we head now into the middle of this decade, The Wire is still incredibly rewatchable. Like when it was on over Christmas, it wasn't just me. It was other people just getting sucked in and be like, oh my God, I missed this show. I missed these characters.
Me too.
You're watching it like you've never watched it before. And I just don't think The Sopranos, it kind of, The Sopranos and The Shield, I feel like, came when they, they kind of paved the way for what came next. But those shows feel dated. And nobody is going to watch 5 straight days of Sopranos episodes and jump in and out of them like you would with The Wire or Breaking Bad. So it's just an interesting wrinkle for the greatest show of all time conversation.
I agree. I also think, I got sucked in too by The Wire. I also think that weirdly, because we were all so crazy about The Wire and saying it was the greatest thing ever and, preaching it on the streets to everyone, that I think I almost talked myself out of it as to how good it was.
Yeah.
Like I started to think in retrospect that maybe it was a little bit, it was a little too strident, it wasn't as artistic or like wordy or as dreamy as The Sopranos or Mad Men. I don't know what I was doing, but I was basically talking myself out of it. And then I started watching it again, and you just forget how funny it is, you know, and how clever and how rich. And most of all, for me, I got sucked in at the end. So I had walked away from season 5 being like, that was a terrible season of TV that sort of stained the legacy a little bit of the show. And in retrospect, it wasn't that bad. Like the serial killer stuff is bad, but there's so much other good stuff happening around it that if you're not so upset about it, the stuff that's bothering you or you don't think is as good, then if you're not worried about that, you're seeing the whole Bubbles storyline or what happens with Marlo or the end. Yeah. Oh my God. Of course. Yeah. The Omar
and how about
stuff.
The last episode was great, and I'm with you. I think season 5 is now super duper underrated because it was living up. By the time season 5 rolled around, everybody had caught up. It was coming off the second half of season 3 and then season 4, where it was just like an all-time murderer's row. Yeah, it was just. Yeah. And there was no way the show was going to live up to it, but it almost to me feels like it's still a title season to me. It's like the last Lakers title season. Like it wasn't as good as the 0-1 title team. It ended
the same way.
But they still won the title. And you watch those shows and you're like, there's still 25 unbelievable moments. I mean, when Cheese gets shot, how about that whole scene?
Or do you remember McNulty's wake when he's lying pretending to be dead?
Oh, it's incredible. That whole those episodes are incredible, and everybody got too bent out of shape about the serial killer storyline. But I got to say, I still like Gus the newspaper guy. I ride with Gus.
That's right. Gus is a great character. Lost in this not as good plot.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm trying to be more just be more present about in what I'm writing these days is that I think we've slipped too far into this canonization of TV where we want things to be perfect or we expect them to stick the landing when like the essential thing about TV is that it's really flawed and messed up and people screw up or they take a half a season getting their act together. Like there is no perfect TV show. There pretty much has never been one. Like I think Friday Night Lights season 1 maybe is a perfect season of TV. I think the last episode might be the best ending ever. But in between there's a lot of mess. There's serial killer Landry. There's all this stuff that we forget about, but actually kind of makes the journey fun. And in retrospect, Breaking Bad is now going to be, I think it was pretty exceptional. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the show, but it might be overrated because it stuck the landing. Its best episodes were its last 16. You know, so the last taste of it in our minds are those last few. When I bet even Vince Gilligan would admit that those first 2 seasons, especially when it got interrupted by the strike, like they didn't quite have a handle on it yet. It took a while.
The other thing with The Sopranos is there's just some not great actors on that show.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. We all love Paulie Walnuts and we all love Stevie Van Zandt. But come on. I mean, seriously, come on.
Yeah,
they were not good actors. They had key parts. There was a lot of people, and I know why they did it and if they made it more authentic, but when you think of like some of the scenes that Edie Falco and Gandolfini had, compared to some of the other acting on that show. And then and how about AJ Soprano? Yeah. Just look at what happened to everybody on that show after the show ended. Nobody went on to do anything other than Gandolfini and Falco.
To be fair, I often see cast members of The Sopranos at the open bar at HBO premiere parties in New York. They always show up for those. Girls Party, they're always there.
You got to go soon, so we have to quickly rip through TV.
Yes.
Which we ended up not really spoiling anything, so I'm going to redo the intro. favorite 3 shows that you hope people are watching right now.
That's a good one.
Go quick.
Togetherness on HBO.
Yep.
And I think, if I'm going to be under the radar shows, Togetherness, Fortitude, which I talked about a minute ago, is really good on Pivot. And I think Babylon is really good on Sundance. I don't know if you've checked that out, but it's a cop show set in London about an American PR executive who comes to sort of help with the public image of the London Police Department. And it's made by people who worked on The Thick of It, which is the show that eventually, like the American version, people who worked on that show created Veep. So it's a very dark political satire. So they're very good at making something funny. But the show slowly, it does something I've never seen before. Like around episode 3, I think there's 6 in total, it suddenly becomes clear that it's not really a comedy and it's really kind of devastating. So those are the 3 on the below the line shows. But I'm in on Better Call Saul. I think people should watch tonight on Monday. I think the 2nd episode, directed by Michelle MacLaren, it's the most Breaking Bad of the 3 that I saw, and it's really good.
Are you pro or con this season of Girls?
I'm kind of con. Where are you on it?
We'll see.
But let me throw out the best episode of this season of Girls is next week's.
Okay.
It's the 5th episode I thought was really good.
How about Looking?
And surprising. I really like Looking. I think it's totally under the radar. I think it was unfair to compare it to Girls last year because they're very, very different. But in a lot of ways, I think I like it a lot more than Girls this year because it just has a better sense of place and better characters.
But I agree. I think the characters on Looking are really good. What about Showtime?
Showtime has Shameless on right now, which is just that's like the number 1 pick in the underrated TV draft.
Yep.
Have you ever checked it out?
It was too dark for me early, but I got sucked back in because Beatles' Boyfriend is on it this year, so I'm just to support him. Steve Casey.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that guy's good. Well,
yeah.
Shameless is a show that I never write about, and I almost always forget to watch. But when I do watch it, it's just well done. That's John Wells who did ER. He just knows how to make TV in that way that you just immediately clicks into your brain and you know what you're watching and it's enjoyable. But no one's ever going to write about it because it's just it's kind of a comedy and it keeps resetting to 0 every year.
Where do you stand on Badge?
On Badge.
Yeah, it's on the Audience Network. The 101 DirecTV 101. You
I don't have DirecTV. Oh my God, I can't believe you stumped me. No, I don't know
Badge. I just made that up because we've reached a point with TV now where you can just throw out fake names for TV show. You had a heart attack there for a second.
I thought I was done.
That was great.
I swear to God, I thought I was done. I thought you were typing on your BlackBerry to Fennessy and Fearman to get a new TV guy.
Well, after you came up with that weird show on Pivot that I've never heard of, I was like, wow, we've now reached the point where we can just throw out fake shows. What would Badge be and who would be on it? I feel like Paul Gosselaar's on it.
Yeah, what Badge is very obviously is
it's a S.H.I.E.L.D. ripoff, right?
Well, it's partly a S.H.I.E.L.D. ripoff, but partially also a parody of a S.H.I.E.L.D. ripoff. Because what it is about a vain Hollywood actor cast in a cop show, riding along with a New York City police detective, and so trying to find out what really goes on. Which I think was the plot of a bad Eddie Murphy movie a few years ago.
That was Bowfinger. So it's a ripoff of Bowfinger, but not totally a ripoff that you'd actually have to pay damages.
Yeah, and so I think it stars Mark Paul Gosselaar and T.I. I feel like there's just like a certain level of fame that DirecTV has access to.
Yeah,
and that's definitely it.
We should do a game where I come up with fake names for TV shows, and you and Chris Ryan have to battle to see who can come up with the better premise for it, and then I decide who won.
Nothing would make me happier. I would be very, very happy dealing with only fake TV for a couple weeks. I feel like that would be healthy.
Like Julius and Son would be a good one. It's kind of like Sanford and Son, but not really.
Yes.
And it's like the network's overreacting to the whole African American TV thing taking off, and like, whoa, what shows can rip off? Sanford and Son. We'll just change the guy's name.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you know that someone is in there pitching a new Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Someone is in there pitching, and because they cannot, no one can conceive of an original idea, or maybe taking an idea they had and just casting it colorblind. So they're definitely in there pitching things like that. There's like Urkel 2.0 is being pitched right now for sure.
Things to be learned from Fresh Prince and Different Strokes and that kind of genre of show. OC. You're never going to lose when you take somebody who came from nothing and put them in a rich person's world. And it doesn't matter what world that is, you're always winning with that show. It always wins every time.
People like transporting fantasies. They like that. They like to go into those worlds. That's why our show, The Hamptons, premiering on Audience Network 2018, that's going to make us a lot of money.
It still hasn't happened. The Affair was kind of I don't know, a little bit of a version of The Hamptons.
The Golden Globe winning The Affair. You have to say that.
Golden Globe winning The Affair, but it took us into The Hamptons. So that was
but
good.
it also took us deep into the sort of the renegade horse farming world of the Hamptons, where rodeo guys deal drugs. That was a part of the Hamptons I'm not interested in. I'm out. I'm into the artisanal jam making at the country fair. I was into that part, but the rodeo part I don't buy it.
I can't believe there's not a Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard show yet. And I don't know what these networks are waiting for.
The Vineyard would be a good show.
Just people, the rich people coming in, the lifers who live there, and just things happen.
What about Catalina? Oh, what if there was a show? Doesn't Joe Francis, the Girls Gone Wild guy, doesn't he own an island? So what if there was like a Love Boat or Fantasy Island show set on some rich guy's private island, and the people who work there are the only constants, and every week someone new flies in on a G5 as a guest of this person who we never see, and so it's like that's the show.
Well, there was a show that was a little bit like that my wife and I watched every week that had Brooke Burns on it, and she was in Hawaii, and it was like a luxury hotel, and there was stuff going on with the people that worked there, but then new guest stars every week, and I always thought that show should have worked.
That was on Fox. It was on after the OC one year.
Yeah. I like that show. I'm not a hard man to please.
No, you're just,
I like nice locations, and I like the help kind of hooking up with rich people. I'm really not that hard.
You are sitting there waiting to be entertained, and they're failing you.
I feel like I could go into one of these networks and come out with 10 shows.
I think, can we set that up? You're having dinner with Sean Ryan. Let's make this next meeting happen. Let's take this to the next level.
Sean Ryan's got like 10 shows.
I know, he's doing it. So maybe he can give us a blueprint.
He's doing all kinds of stuff. We hit just about everything. But next time we'll talk Mad Men and Game of Thrones are coming.
Yeah,
right?
It's crunch time. Playoffs coming. A lot of stuff coming.
Game of Thrones first, Mad Men a little bit after.
A week. I think last year they were the same day. I think they might be a week apart this year. But either way, they're coming at beginning of April.
I've been giving serious thought to having a Game of Thrones podcast with one of my buddies, like House or JackO or somebody who watches the show, where we just talk about the characters without knowing their actual names.
Yeah.
So it's like that guy who got his dick cut off. So when that guy comes in, and then he saw the crazy lady who does the blood, and then we just talk about it like that the whole time. We never say names.
But then you can have Jason Concepcion, who writes the Maester column for us. He can do an edited version of your podcast where he just talks over it and corrects it.
He just dubs each person?
Yeah, he adds like correct Dothraki pronunciation. Just like that's for the real head.
And then Ned Stark's son, the bastard one, whatever his name is. So that guy and the lady who liked him, but then... Yeah,
that is the number one conversation in the country. No show that I write about is more popular or I get more feedback about, but I would say 70% of the feedback I get when it's Game of Thrones season is, no, really, who is that person? Like that. That's the baseline for my job.
Should you write a Game of Thrones glossary that people can read in a sidebar next to the actual piece?
Well, I think that's what we need.
I got to be honest. When I read your thing, I have even as you're writing the names, I don't know who's who except for Khaleesi, of course.
That's why we have Jason, because he knows so much more than I do, because he's read the books and he's deep in it. I'm just bluffing. I mean, I'm just paying as close attention as I can.
But Jason's appealing to the people who are way, way into it. I'm talking about a glossary for idiots that just has all the names and like a quick definition.
I think you and House need to come up with agreed upon alternate names for everyone that you guys understand. So
I know that one guy is definitely the guy who doesn't have a dick anymore.
Right.
That's that guy's name.
So anytime I write Theon Greyjoy, we'll just put an asterisk, and next to it, it'll, we could have a picture of your face and come like a little thought balloon. It'll say Dickless Guy.
Dickless Guy. Like I guess I got to make the names shorter.
Yeah, we got to make it punchier. we got to fit it in the sidebar or whatever. But
Dickless Guy.
Yeah, I think
you
that's
don't
fair.
want to be Dickless Guy on TV.
No, it's not a good look.
Do you think they'll spin off the Dickless Guy with the eunuch? And maybe just, I don't know. That might be an NBC comedy.
Just the adventure of, what would it be?
NBC, Rachel Bilson stars with Dickless Guy and the eunuch.
Rachel Bilson, and in a surprise return engagement, James McDaniel.
Did Rachel Bilson and Alicia Cuthbert
TV.
have to fight for that job as the gay sperm donor lady who then realizes the sperm donor fell in love with somebody else?
The sad truth is they probably did. Like that's actually probably not even a joke. They probably did. They probably both read for it, and it got.
And Annalyn McCord was in there too, but didn't make the second round of auditions.
Well, she like Sean Young'd the audition.
She
showed up dressed as the gay pregnant friend, and they just asked her. They called security.
Got her out. All right, you have to tape your podcast with Chris Ryan, which people should listen to.
I got to go in the city.
Thank you for your time. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill. Talk to you soon.
All right, as promised, we're calling JackO at work. My buddy, diehard Yankee fan, doesn't really like any of the Boston teams, but that's fine. We've been friends since we were 18, and he does not know we're calling this time.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Johnny.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
The phone call out of nowhere for the podcast. You were not expecting this one.
I was not, no.
How's the weather on the East Coast?
Oh, it's awesome. It's if you want to be like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, it's great.
I had to see. I'm checking in for a couple reasons.
Okay.
One, America needs your thoughts on A-Rod and just this whole thing. So just give us your thoughts. Just give us all of your thoughts. All of them.
Well, it's a mystifying circumstance because the Yankees seem to be basically telling him to go F himself in every possible way, except that they're welcoming him back and continuing to pay his salary. But they're trying to nickel and dime him, comparatively speaking, over his $6 million bonus for hitting 6 more home runs to get to Willie Mays' magical 660 plateau of home runs.
Right.
And they alleged they were going to play hardball with that. They told him, like, don't dare report to spring training 1 minute earlier than all veterans are supposed to report. And you're not playing third base. Don't even think about it. They've done everything to give him the stiff arm, and yet they can. I don't understand why they don't just buy themselves $60 million of goodwill, as I've said before, and just release him and eat the money.
Couldn't they pay him to go away, like or basically just say you're not allowed to come here, or can you file a grievance?
Well, I think you can. I mean, I know baseball contracts are guaranteed, but can't you just cut a guy or waive a guy? They're still on the hook to pay him, but I mean, I don't think you're contractually obligated to make him a part of your team.
Well, but I think that. So here's the problem. He wants to break some of those home run records, right?
Yes. So
his ideal scenario would be them just waiving him, passing through waivers, and then he gets to play with somebody else.
Right.
But they're playing a game.
Somebody else could probably pay him the major league minimum.
Right, but then he gets to go for the home run record.
Right.
Their only trump card in this whole thing is to pay him but prevent him from playing.
Right. So
you
wouldn't do that.
Chicken.
Just waste a roster spot to pay him to sit on the bench.
No, but you could send him down to AAA, couldn't you? Or does his contract prohibit that?
No, I think you can send a guy down, but then I think if you reach a certain point, either you have to go through waivers or something if you're sent down to the minors and it's not injury related. Because that's why they always do a thing where they have to send guys down who's not out of because he still has options.
I thought you had to if you designated someone for assignment.
Yeah.
Then if he passed through waivers, nobody picked him up. Then he just goes to AAA.
Yeah, you could do that.
Because that happened with Daniel Bard, I remember.
Yeah, you can maybe do that. I think
that
what they're secretly
Johnny.
hoping is that he will show up to spring training. They will have the doctors go over him with an extra fine-tooth comb and claim that he's medically unable to play because of his degenerative hip and that he's sat out a year and it only made things worse or it's not improved, and that they then can get rid of him and say that insurance has to pick up the tab.
It's kind of like an HBO movie. Like it would start with them trying to figure out how to get rid of him, and then they would like maybe frame his urine test.
Well, that's what George would have done. The old
George
would
would
have
just
dug up
doctored
some dirt on him, right?
Yeah,
doctored the test, whatever it took.
A-Rod.
The funny thing is the players. I mean, players I think don't mind him, and now that Jeter's gone, there's none of that antagonism. And I read a quote today on my phone, actually, an ESPN update that Sabathia was on SportsCenter this morning or something, or on some ESPN show, and was questioned about it and said, quote, "We're going to welcome him. All the players will welcome him back with open arms."
It'd be funny if they just figured out, like, all these subtle, stupid ways to try to humiliate him, so he quit. Like they gave him the worst locker.
Yeah.
They gave him a uniform that didn't fit him correctly. Like it was like a size too small. And they did all these just subtle things just to annoy him. He wasn't like he's allergic to peanuts, so just all the food has peanuts in it.
This is like once again, this is like the second podcast in a row that we're going to reference the phenomenal Robbie Benson movie One-on-One. But remember the coach? He tried to get him to like relinquish his scholarship.
Yeah.
He had to have him quit the team, so he made it as uncomfortable for him as possible.
Maybe they just like the first batting practice, some guy just throws an A-Rod 10 straight times. Big brawl.
Absolutely. That would be a good call. But I think at this point he's so beyond any shame or humility that he just it's not going to work. You have to have some shame to just be like, I can't put up with this, but he's just well past that point.
Yeah, and probably even thinks that he's a sympathetic figure.
Oh, I guarantee he thinks that. And the thing is, he's going to be booed lustily at first, even at home, no question about that.
Yeah.
But if he comes back and he starts producing anything close to, what he used to be, the fans will forgive him in a New York minute, and they'll totally be on his side.
Is he attached to his number? Maybe they could trade change his number, assign his number to somebody else.
Give 13 to someone else.
Yeah. Chase.
I think
who's
13.
The guy you signed? Who's the free agent you signed?
Chase Headley.
Yeah, Chase
Headley
Headley
played last year. Oh, Didi Gregorius could give him 13.
Yeah, Didi gets number 13.
Maybe that'll work.
They give A-Rod 69. No, you're wearing this.
He might be into that.
That's true. He might enjoy it.
I think Gronk trademarked that by now. I would think that he owns all the 69s for every sport.
I'm still reeling from the fact that James Shields went for 4 years, $75 million.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I was
a
little bit mildly intrigued by
price?
the Yankees getting him last week, thinking, well, they could use a little insurance in the rotation. And I don't think he's big game James or any of that hype, but I thought he'd be at least a known quantity. But for anything approaching $20 million a year, I'm so glad they ran away from that.
Oh, see, I was thinking the opposite, but maybe it's just because my team paid more than that for Hanley Ramirez.
You think that was a bargain?
I don't know.
$20 million a year for James Shields?
Well, it's $18.75 million a year for James Shields.
Well, and I heard today that it could go as high as 80. It was somewhere between 72 and 80, depending on the incentives or bonuses.
So here's the thing: like, if you're gonna pay, like these teams always try to save money instead of paying James Shields. They pay a couple guys like $10 million, and those guys usually suck.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't want any part of James Shields for $20 million.
Yeah, I guess.
He'll be good I think he's going to be good in San Diego because it's the National League. He's going to pitch against pitchers, and it's a big ballpark. So I think he'll put up fine numbers there, and then people will be tweeting me. Padres fans will be tweeting me saying, oh, you're wrong. Should have signed him. But it's a big difference pitching there and pitching in the AL East. Pitching in Fenway Park on a regular basis. Don't the Red Sox own him?
I think the vortex of Padres fans just in general, and then Padres fans listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I think it's a small number.
Yeah, it might not even be a number.
I don't have to worry about the angry tweets on that one.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be overwhelmed. But if you were me, would you rather pay $88 million for Hanley Ramirez or $75 million for James Shields?
Well, if I was you and your ace is Rick Porcello, and then that's followed by a number 2 of Buchholz, I would have been much more interested in James Shields.
Yeah, that's kind of my point.
Yeah, they could have used James Shields, although I don't think that he puts the fear of God into anyone, but that would have been a good signing for them, I think.
He's like a very rich man's Tim Wakefield. He eats up innings.
Yeah.
He's going to get to his 200 innings.
Familiar with the AL East. He's pitched there before. I could always go back on that.
Well, the other thing is he's supposedly like a legendary clubhouse guy.
Oh, well, there you go.
You know how much I love clubhouse guys.
Absolutely. You've missed that. So you don't have since Victor Martinez left, you don't really have a great clubhouse guy. Although Big Papi's the ultimate clubhouse guy, right?
No, but that's how we won the World Series. They had a whole team of clubhouse guys. Shane Victorino, Johnny Gomes.
Right, all the
Mike Napoli, Mike Karp. And then all of a sudden they were like, yeah, that worked. So let's get rid of all those guys and we'll sign Hanley Ramirez.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. I can't say I really care. I'm still basking in the glow of the Patriots Super Bowl.
Of course, as well you should be.
Do you think Be serious.
Yeah.
Be honest. I want your honest answer here. Bill Belichick retires from the Patriots and announces he's running as a Republican candidate in 2016. What's your reaction?
I would quit my job to follow him like following a preacher. Some revivalist Pentecostal preacher. Like as a cult leader, I would follow him to the depths of the ends of the earth.
Bill, New Hampshire didn't go as well as you thought it might. What's your reaction right now? We're on to the next primary.
On to South Carolina, right?
On South Carolina. It'll be fine.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I would have him do anything at this point. Like, you guys he's an unquestioned genius. There's no doubt. He can't be questioned. I dislike the Patriots, but as I said on Twitter, I mean, to win 4 Super Bowls in this era of salary cap and free agency in this day and age is absolutely incredible. And of parity, it's really incredible.
There's this incredible Sound FX show on NFL Network that I might have watched 3 times. That's just all the guys mic'd up for a solid hour.
Yeah.
And Belichick, and he did this when they did the Baltimore mic'd up too. When things are going wrong, he just goes over to the defense and he basically just says, "Hey, do your jobs. You guys, we've been prepared all week. There are no surprises anymore. You guys just have to do your jobs." And he's basically saying to them, like, "I'm Bill Belichick. I told you everything they were going to do. Just do your freaking job. All right? You guys are the most prepared team in the league. Do your job." And that's what he does when he's mic'd up.
I heard a story once. I don't know why it stuck with me, but it did, and it was about Tony Gonzalez, the tight end. It was in a Pro Bowl, and Belichick was the coach. And it was like kickoff coverage. And so, of course, the Pro Bowl, everybody does everything half-assed in the Pro Bowl. And Tony Gonzalez completely, whiffed on a block on somebody, and he walked back to the bench. Belichick gave him like a side eye and goes, "You might want to block somebody on that." And he got so motivated that he went down and like laid somebody out the next kickoff in the Pro Bowl because he's like, Belichick just has this way. There's something about the way he said it, like completely emasculated Tony Gonzalez, who had pride as a professional. Just as an aside.
There's so many great moments in that sound effects thing. I enjoy all sound effect shows, but
me too.
They show that you've seen that clip of when Brady's just jumping up and down after the Butler interception.
Yeah.
Garoppolo kind of sidles over to kind of join in on the thing, but Brady doesn't even acknowledge him, and then Garoppolo just kind of goes and jumps around like 5 feet away from him. Brady kind of throws him out like a senior in high school with the freshman coming up to him like, "Hey, go over there. You're not in this.
You're not part of this yet."
But I got a couple emails about this. Edelman, in the second half, and especially after he gets clocked by Cam Chancellor on the play that might have been a concussion and might not have, starts telling everybody he loves them.
Oh
and
God.
I had a reader say that it's a little like your drunk buddy in college at 2 a.m. who's just, "Hey, Johnny, I love you. You're the best." And it's a little bit like that. At one point, they're on the drive to take the touchdown, and all of the offensive linemen are standing next to each other. Edelman goes up to him and goes, "Hey, I love you guys. I love all of you guys." It's just like right in the middle. There's like 2 minutes left. It's great, but he might actually be like that. So I don't know the actual answer. But Edelman's whole performance is an Emmy Award winner. You got to watch it.
If the internet is to be believed, he's been loving quite a few people ever since the Super Bowl. So
that's true.
I don't think he's
stopped.
Come on,
He's a 7th-round pick.
I don't think he's stopped. And good for him. He was at the Grammys last night. I saw a snippet of that. So he and Butler. But talk about a guy that really hit the lottery, Butler.
Yeah.
Nobody would have known who he was 2 weeks ago, and now he's the toast of Boston.
We're all worried about Butler. All the Pats fans are worried about Butler. Talk about a switch in your life. You go from you're this anonymous rookie D-back to a famous person, and it happens in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that might be a little too much too soon, you think?
Yeah, I'm a little worried. I'm going to be very curious to make sure he doesn't start dating an actress. That'll be the next sign that we should be concerned.
As a Giants fan, I'm wildly worried about the same for Odell Beckham Jr. He's gotten way too much exposure. Great rookie campaign, great player, but I'm definitely afraid of the limelight with him too.
I thought he was dating somebody, isn't he?
He may well be. I'm not sure.
I remember reading something about him romantically that made me pause.
Yeah,
can't remember what that is. And if I'm remembering it correctly, I apologize to Odell Senior and Junior. So Belichick in 2016.
Yeah,
you
I'll
quit
get
your
behind
job.
his candidacy.
Who would you want as his VP candidate?
It doesn't even matter. He would be enough. Doesn't matter. It's not like he would need, given his evil genius, I don't think it would matter who his running mate was to sway people. As long as it wasn't Pete Carroll.
Poor Pete.
Oh my God. I said this on Twitter the other day. I watched some clips of that Matt Lauer Pete Carroll interview.
Yeah, Pete's a mess.
Oh my God, that broke him. That team next year, they're done. That team is done with. He lost that locker room. It broke him. I think it broke that team. They're done.
It might have broken his brain.
I got a lot of tweets from Seattle, or a handful, saying, "No, this is motivation. You don't understand." No, I saw that interview. He's done. He's broken. He's a broken man. That finished him.
You know, you're in that mindset of being super aggressive.
Yeah.
And that pass play was definitely up there. And the sound effects thing, Wilson comes off the field, and he's just totally confused by what happened. He doesn't understand. He's like, "What happened to Carroll?" And Carroll's like, "They jumped the route." He doesn't want to talk to him. And then Wilson wanders over to some other coach, and he's like, "But what happened?" Like, he's just dying. He's dying for anyone to tell him it's not his fault, and nobody's giving him anything. And he's just like, I didn't see him. Did he? He's just rambling. He just can't believe that it got picked.
It's absolutely inexplicable. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to throw in the middle of the field from the 1 yard line. It'll never be understood because it doesn't make any sense.
I didn't mind passing. And the more I think about it as the week has gone by, it seems like the real flaw in that play was who they threw it to. Well, they threw it to like their fifth string receiver going over the middle, like all the things that could have gone wrong. Like, what if it hit his shoulder pad and went up in the air?
Or how about everybody knows you're going to run the ball to Lynch, so how about you do play action and have Russell Wilson roll out?
Right.
Have the tight end in front of him. He either runs it in or dumps it off. It only works every single time in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, that's
like
the
if you
play
want to
that
throw
scared
it there,
me.
Play action.
Well, how about this? How about not run the play that the Pats send the defense in specifically to stop that play, and Butler tells Browner in front of him, "Hey, hold up your guy. I'm going to dart right to the spot where the ball's going to be."
Right. Yeah, that might have been
Maybe that was a mistake.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Just unbelievable.
Do you buy my theory, which I really strongly believe in, that I wrote about in my column about the fact that Belichick did not call timeout intentionally as a poker move to put the pressure on Carroll because he knew a pass play was coming?
No, I don't believe that. I think he's an evil genius. I don't think he's that much of a genius. I think they were saving the timeout because I, like the rest of America, thought that Lynch was going to run it in, and it was a question of how much time they were going to have left. So I think he wanted to save a timeout in case Brady threw a Hail Mary down the field. With they get the ball back with 25 seconds left or something, and Brady has a big play, and you have a timeout to try and get the ball, get the kicking team on the field or whatever. I don't think that he was. That's way too many chess moves ahead to think, well, I won't call a timeout. Pete's going to be frazzled and run the stupidest play in the history of mankind.
But they had a couple of minutes because there was a timeout, and Belichick is the best coach of all time.
I think that's thinking way too far ahead. I don't think he was thinking that. I think he was like, I think it was a case of let them score and have as much time left as possible.
I personally think he thought if they don't score on first down, I'm not calling timeout because they'd have to throw it on second down, and I think we can stop them. And then after, I have a better chance with my defense than I would of Brady doing dink and dunk in less than 50 seconds. I really think he thought through that whole process in his freaking diabolical head.
Well, given his track record and his history, you can't discount it. But I just think that's like way too much, chess moves down, 5 chess moves ahead. I don't know. I don't buy it, but you're in your glory of your 9th championship in 15 years. So I'll let you run wild with your fantasies.
First of all, it's 9 championships in 13 years.
Okay,
just to correct you. What would Belichick do with A-Rod to bring this full circle?
Well, he would probably embrace him and figure if we're going to have him here, we've got to make him, we're all in this together, circle the wagons, and he would say it's us against the world with A-Rod as our, team family member. Or he would just outright release him.
I think he'd figure out something with the urine test. What? A-Rod failed the test? I can't believe it.
Yeah.
We don't have to pay him?
He could find a way to deflate his ego or something. So.
Oh, I saw what you did there.
Yeah.
Hey, as a neutral observer, don't you feel like the Pats got railroaded with Deflategate? Can't we just say that now?
Well, the reality
Can we officially say it?
The reality is winning that Super Bowl. There's no way in hell that even if they have it on videotape of them actively deflating footballs and knowingly cheating, there's no way we would ever find out about that, because the NFL can't come out and say, oh yeah, by the way, the Super Bowl champion, they cheated in the AFC Championship or through the season. There's no way in hell that's going to come out.
Well, Chris Morton said 11 of the 12 balls were significantly deflated. And then it turned out one of the balls was significantly deflated. And then it turns out the Colts had one of the balls for a couple hours. So who the hell knows what they did? I mean, nobody knows when anything happened here.
Reports, and and if you could ever get everybody hooked up to a polygraph and get an independent investigation or something is the only way you'd ever really get the truth. But that's never going to happen now. There's no way the NFL is going to come out and say, oh yeah, it was, I don't know what they're going to say. They're going to hopefully just sweep it under the rug, hopefully from their standpoint, sweep it under the rug and let bygones be bygones and move on with life and hope they don't get called out on it.
Well, nobody's a better sweeper than Roger Goodell.
Well, that's just it. That was what he was born to do.
Yeah. He should just walk around with a broom.
That's unfortunately, the job he was born for.
Occasionally he breaks the broom or accidentally hits somebody else with it.
Right.
I'm
we're never going to find
out
anything about that. There's no question.
The most annoying thing of all of it was all these dudes coming out who had some sort of axe to grind. Like, that is an easy axe to see, right? Jerry Rice, the Niners versus the Pats. He comes out. He's got to say his piece. Comes out. He used Stickum. Ray Lewis. We don't need to cover him.
Right.
Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Jerome Bettis.
Oh, sure.
The Carolina GM. Yeah, it's like, oh, what do you guys, Tony Dungy, Bill Polian?
Yeah.
What do you guys all have in common?
Nobody
Johnny.
had clean hands that was coming out to make accusations, no doubt.
Especially Jerry Rice.
Literally didn't have clean hands.
He barely cleaned his hands coming out of that massage parlor that time. Remember that one? Hey, Jerry. Jerry, don't stand in front of it. Don't throw rocks at the house. What's that saying? Help me with the saying.
Those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
Yeah. Don't come out of your glass house and start throwing rocks at the Patriots. I would shut up. I've had it with all these people. Seriously.
God, why didn't Pete Carroll just run the ball there? For the love of God, you would never have been able to say anything again, especially if you lost on another Tyree circus catch.
I'm in the mode of we would have shut down beast mode. We would have slammed them with the 8-man front. Sit down, beast mode.
Right, no question, sure.
Hey, quickly, did you see the HBO show that started last night? That's it's like they're tracking this murder.
No, I saw something about it on the internet, the Jinx or whatever.
Yeah.
I did not see it because I was watching the ESPN production of Miracles and Men.
You're a great man. You're a great friend and a great man.
That's not me being a corporate shill. I really was watching that because the 1980 USA hockey team, I would watch a documentary about where Herb Brooks' suits were made.
Right.
Because I would watch anything about it, because that couldn't have been any more in my wheelhouse. So I was fascinated for 2 hours actually reading, because most of it was in Russian with subtitles. But I was watching that. So is the Jinx good?
Jinx is really in your wheelhouse.
I'll check that out. It's a series, right?
If you don't like Jinx, your money back for that recommendation.
All right.
Yeah, it's like a 6-part series. It's really good.
I'll check that out.
And the 30 for 30, which is rerunning a bunch of times, that was done by John Hawk, who's done a bunch of our good ones. He did the Marcus Dupree one. He did NC State. I mean, he did the Finish Line for Grantland. Anything he does is going to be really good. If you see his name, you should just watch whatever he did.
It was really well done.
This one's really well done. And also, people always ask me what the favorite 30 for 30s are. I always gravitate to the ones that had a high degree of difficulty. And this one had a really high degray of difficulty. This one was I just don't think a lot of people would have pulled it off and made it that watchable. And really
one of the things that I thought was interesting about it is, there's been 1,000,000,001 things, and rightly so, about the USA winning it, and documentaries and movies and everything else. But this one, to do it from the Russian perspective, it was there's a famous thing with Jimmy Breslin when JFK got shot, that he went down and interviewed the gravedigger and it was like revolutionary because everybody else was at the White House and talking to dignitaries, and he went down and read this amazing story about the guy that dug JFK's grave.
Yeah.
This was like the same thing of like having this story that's been covered from every angle and covering it from a new one of like looking at the Russian perspective and going with Fedosov back to Lake Placid and everything. It was really, really good.
So
and I loved how most of them are still bitter about it. And I loved how they had like this guy from the TASS news agency who was a sports writer who had all these excuses about, you know, some figure skater won a gold medal the night before and they were drinking champagne and they were complaining about the athletes' village that they later turned into a prison, that the dorms, they were cold and it was noisy. Give me a break.
So you think when John Hawk does the one about the 2015 Seahawks in 9 years, that'll be as good or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, about the game, the play that broke Pete Carroll. What if I told you there was a Super Bowl and the coach screwed up the play?
What if I told you a coach went from a Super Bowl to an insane asylum?
Exactly. It's so perfect that he was, you know, Fredo and had a hideous job at the Pats, and it all came full circle to have him. Not that I bear necessarily any ill will to Pete Carroll, even though he's some lunatic 9/11 truther, but it's such perfect symmetry that he blows up against the Patriots.
Yeah, I stayed quiet during the Super Bowl week about the whole, well, actually, Pete Carroll wasn't as bad in New England as everyone remembers thing, because it was like, all right, whatever. If we're going to say that, then. Hey, the team he took over in '97 was probably the single most talented Patriots team.
Right.
And I don't even think they made it to the AFC title game. No, they lost the first playoff game that year in Pittsburgh. But, yeah, anyway.
Anyhow, yeah.
All right, Johnny.
Well,
good luck with A-Rod. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for your congratulations. That means a lot to me, Johnny.
Absolutely.
I know you don't mean it, but thank you anyway.
Well, it's just a thing you say.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
40% off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Hey, what you got there, Golick?
The new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole.
Man, that looks good.
Yeah, this new guac is really bringing the flavor.
Got one for me too, right?
Well, yes and no. Mostly no. Well, really, all no.
Try the irresistible new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole, juicy grilled chicken strips with Monterey cheddar, Chipotle Southwest sauce, and new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of jalapeno. Subway, eat fresh.